Welcome to Parks and Cons Con Talk, where we bring you news from the best pop culture and comic book conventions around, and then take you to the floors of some of our favorite shows. I'm Carmel, and this is my co-host Sean.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Con Talk. We are very excited to be here. This time we are on location at our hotel out in San Jose for Silicon Valley Comic Con. We'll talk about that in the Under the Con segment. But before we get to that, we've got some news to cover and a few other things. And so let's get to the Coming to a Con Near You segment. This is the segment where we pick 3 or 4 pieces of news from the convention world that interest us. It's not a comprehensive list of all the news from the last couple weeks, but it's just some of the things that kind of hit our attention. Always feel free to jump into the comments section and let us know things that you think we should hit on and kind of continue the dialogue there. So what's up first in our news?
Well, first up, Comic-Con International and many of its exhibitors have been busy announcing WonderCon signings. One of our viewers, Cover Blue, wrote us concerned about the 10:30 Friday drawing for the Teen Titans Go signing because registration starts at the exact same time. First off, are you excited for any of the signings yourself, and do you have any advice on how to get those signings?
Yeah, this is a little bit different for our new segment of kind of including a question that came in, a little bit of some highlights of the news, but we thought it was particularly applicable to this timeline because as we're going to be having this episode hit our channel, it's going to be the day before WonderCon launches. And so hopefully Cover Blue will have addressed your question via email and responded before you see it here. But we thought it was a good enough question to kind of bring in for everybody as they might be watching this on their way out to WonderCon. So why don't we real quick, if you can, run down the schedule of some of the signings that have been announced that are some of the more prominent ones.
Okay, so the schedule for the drawings for the signings can be found on the Comic-Con website and WonderCon page, specifically autographs. But the first one on Friday is at 10:30, which is the drawing for the Teen Titans Go signing. Then at 11:30 is going to be the drawing for the iZombie signing, and at the same time the drawing for Bob's Burger signing and the drawing for Containment signing. And then on Saturday, the drawings actually start an hour earlier at 9:30, and it's at 9:30 they're doing the Orphan Black, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Justice League versus Teen Titans. And then, so they're all seemingly at the same time on Saturday. And then on Sunday, they're also at the same time at 9:30 for Legends of Tomorrow, The 100, and Lego Scooby-Doo Haunted Hollywood.
So with these drawings that are specifically listed there, these are drawings, as they sound, lotteries basically. And usually it's not known in advance what the actual chances of winning these lotteries. But at the end, you've got to figure that you're planning in time to wait at a chance to get in. Now, if you don't draw a winning ticket or a winning ball or however they do it, you do have the chance in some years and at some signings to go to the room and wait in basically if we have extra time, you can get in line. And there's no guarantees of that. You could end up waiting there for 2, 3, 4 hours, and ultimately they may run out of time before they even get through the people that got a ticket, let alone going into overtime there. So it's a risky proposition, but it is something to know that if you're really, set on getting the Teen Titans Go signing, you don't get a winning ticket, you can try that. It really becomes, again, about opportunity cost, which is so much the question whenever we talk about conventions is how much time is this worth? So let's talk about Teen Titans Go in particular. With it being early in the morning like that, relative to the convention start, registration on Friday begins at 10:30 a.m. So the first thing we would suggest is, if at all possible, register Thursday night. We covered this in our prep podcast, and to give a quick plug for that, we have a WonderCon prep podcast over on iTunes and Stitcher. You can head over there and check it out, where we go into a lot more detail just about WonderCon, more than even the visual guide on our last Con Talk or what we're doing today. That's one of the things that we talk about there, is that if you can at all get there Thursday night, that's by far the play. Now, in our case this year, we're not going to be getting out there Thursday night. We usually do. There's a confluence of other things going on, and so anyway, we'll be getting there Friday morning. Now, even though it says registration begins at 10:30 a.m., Comic-Con International does a really good job with registration. One, they're super fast, and two, they usually open early. It's kind of like the In-N-Out thing, where In-N-Out usually opens at 10 a.m., even though it always says 10:30 a.m. on the signage. And Comic-Con usually opens registration earlier. So I would guess that they'll start processing people probably an hour before. So if you are shooting for that Teen Titans Go at 10:30 and you can't get out there Thursday night, I would suggest being there early Friday morning, as early as you possibly can be there. Take care of parking, all of that. Get in line for reg and be one of the first people done, and then just jam right over there. The signing area is in the same hall as registration, correct?
Yes, they both say that they're in the West Hall. As far as exact specifics, I wasn't able to find exactly where in that hall either of those are going to be, but I'm sure there'll be signage and volunteers there to help guide. So yeah, get there as early as possible. If you can't get there Thursday, be as early as possible to get registered, and then hope that that you get one of the winning drawings when you head over to the drawing area.
Yeah, and since it's in the same proximity, that's nice. You can run over there, and then once you have your winning ticket, they'll send you somewhere else. And depending on the time, and now if we kind of expand and talk, you said a few different drawings there, a lot of fun things like iZombie and Legend of Tomorrow, are both ones that I'd be interested in. Once you have your winning ticket, they'll tell you, go to this location at this time. Gone are the days where you can kind of get in line and draw twice. I mean, not to say that doesn't happen occasionally, even at San Diego for some of the lesser popular panels. But for the most part, these panels have enough people in line early in the morning that everybody gets one shot, and either you make it or you don't. Obviously, if you can have a larger group of friends there or family, if you've got, a lot of times we know people will use their children to get a drawing in that, and that's a nice way to get an extra opportunity to draw. But in the end, it really does become about opportunity cost. I know for us, we really look at the drawings as something we try to stay away from if at all possible. That said, sometimes we do really, get sucked into them. When we did the Arrow one a few years ago, DC did that with Warner Brothers and CW. That was just a get in line early and you get a ticket, and so that was great. With Flash, we did not get the ticket. We went to the overflow, kind of wait around, and we fortunately got in there. So, again, we've done the drawings, the lotteries for various things, but not a huge fan. We did it with a Lego minifigure last year, and I think once we were really successful and once we were not successful at all. And when you're not successful at all and you've burned a couple hours of your time, you really feel like what a waste of that convention. So it's really big highs or big lows there. But biggest thing, if you can, register Thursday, and regardless, get there early in line. Now, the next big part of the question we get is, well, what time to be there? And it's tough to know. Obviously, some are more popular than others. I would guess Teen Titans Go will be a pretty popular one. iZombie as well. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., these are going to be popular ones. So I would say, try and be there a couple hours early, and then the caveat to that, I think we covered that in the podcast, whatever you think you need to be there after you calculate a couple hours early is for you, then tack on like another hour to that.
So you mean early in regards to getting in line for the drawing versus early for the actual signing?
Yeah, totally, yeah. Once you have your ticket for the signing, as long as you make it there at whatever time they tell you to. At Anaheim, they had us held in separate rooms. So it was like, go to room 302 in this other part of, and they had us in a holding tank, and then from there we'd make our way into the actual room where there was signing. And beware, usually with all these signings, they won't allow you to have anything personal signed. So if part of the reason you want to get the autograph is because you want to get, some group photo signed, they won't allow that. And two, they usually bound you to not having your phone out at all, like not even out of your pocket at all. It really feels like a prison line in a lot of ways. Like, keep your hands to your side, we'll hand you a poster, put it down in front of them, get it signed, don't make eye contact, and get out. It's not the most fun environment, even though a lot of times the talent, last year the Flash, the actors were great, but I mean, it was really like, keep your eyes forward and keep moving in terms of the tone of the room.
Right, and that's really meant, I think, to get as many people in as possible.
Totally.
If they weren't so vigilant, we may not have gotten in for the Flash signing last year, which we were able to. But yeah, it's obviously the volunteers and the staff have tough jobs, and part of that is trying to make it as satisfying for everybody, and part of that is rushing people through. So as many people that can walk away with their signed poster, I think that outweighs the satisfaction that fewer people would get from being able to take pictures and things.
Yeah,
So,
they're not going to let you take selfies at the tables or anything like that. But it's a good time if you can get in, and obviously if not, well, I mean, we know some people that's what they do every morning is they wait for one of those, and maybe out of the 3 days they get one, and they feel like that's a successful time. Obviously, if they get more, even better. And so, good luck to you if you are trying it. Definitely study up on the Comic-Con site over at WonderCon side of the things and see what's going on there. And we'll talk a little bit more in our tips at the end of the podcast about some ideas in terms of social media to help maybe bolster chances of getting some signs as well. So, all right, what's up next?
okay, so last week, Sarah Pollock of Dark Media Online alerted us on Twitter that CCI included a trademark on Los Angeles Comic-Con. Do you think this is an indication that that move to LA will be permanent, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it is definitely an indication that Comic-Con International does not like people using the word Comic-Con in their names. I think that's the biggest thing that it's an indicator of, which we already know that. And we understand that because obviously it must be frustrating when people talk about going to Comic-Con and they're talking about Phoenix Comic-Con or Salt Lake or whatever. Yes, we're at Silicon Valley Comic-Con this weekend. And so that has to be frustrating when we kind of that attend a lot of shows think of Comic-Con, meaning San Diego, as capital C when we talk Comic-Con. But not everybody thinks that way. And some think it's just one giant company that owns all of these conventions and so on and so forth. So I do think that. But yeah, when Sarah Beth contacted us on Twitter, we were at Disneyland, and she had asked the question if in the past it had said Anaheim Comic-Con underneath the WonderCon verbiage. And I'm not positive about that in the past, but I thought it was interesting. And she wrote up a little story about it and some opinions on it, and it caught some traction this week and stuff. And I think it is an interesting topic. I think probably, though, what we can count, one, I'm sure that they would like to claim every city in the world with a Comic-Con on it and ownership of that, but obviously they need to show some ownership in the first place of having a show there. Now that they have Los Angeles, I think it's super smart that they have that. Maybe they trademarked it a while back even, I'm not sure, but they do have a show there. I think what makes a lot of sense, and as they let Alternative Press Expo go, I think it was last year, which was kind of their little independent show up in San Francisco. I do think there's a future where Comic-Con International has 3 shows a year, and they have San Diego, and they have a Northern California show, and then they have something maybe in Anaheim or LA. So I would think that this is more of an insurance purposes, see how it goes this year, see how they like it. As we talked about in the last show a little bit, and then definitely on the podcast, I think I talked more about it, is just this is a really fun lineup that they've got packed for this WonderCon. So if the belief is that part of the reason they were able to attract so much talent, they feel that this has given them a better opportunity to put on a better show by moving to LA, then I think it wouldn't be a surprise if they stay in LA. I mean, I don't think it's any foregone conclusion that they return to Anaheim or anywhere else. I think Comic-Con International is going to do what they think puts together the best show for them. And obviously LA, as much as we're not fans of the convention center, it's undeniable the geography and how centered it is to so many millions of people. And so I don't know that this is anything that we would count on our 2017 calendar saying that we're going to an LA Comic-Con. But I do think that there are potentially plans there to have LA integrated, and maybe it's even 4 shows, San Francisco, LA, Anaheim, and San Diego, do something quarterly. So we'll see. We have another news segment in a bit about kind of Comic-Con just extending their reach in different ways in the streaming area. And so I think, they're not resting on their laurels. They're looking at ways to expand their brand and do even more, So what about you?
I'm kind of the same mindset. I don't think anything at this point is happening in regards to it being a permanent move. The impression I've received, I don't know from what sources, I'm not sure, just over the time, I thought that CCI kind of liked Anaheim, and Anaheim has traditionally been a pretty good convention center for these purposes. And then with the expansion, that really just indicates that they are that much more open to conventions being there and having larger conventions. But yeah, like you said, LA, just general population, there's a lot of people packed into that area. And then the celebrities, it's down the street from Hollywood practically, so it's much easier to get them there. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see how things go this year. traditionally, as we've said repeatedly, we're not big fans of the LA Convention Center, but if it brings in that many more people, both as attendees and both as guests, then it may just make more sense for them.
And it's tough with anything of a sample size of one. I mean, this year the Lakers are playing at Staples on Friday and Sunday, which is really tough. I mean, that's going to make things even messier than they would be on another occasion. But potentially, you know, WonderCon gets settled there, or LA Comic-Con gets settled there, and they start to work out where they build around that calendar and make sure that they're not, you know, kind of stepping on each other's toes. Also for us, we get, you know, we hear from vendor friends, artist friends, talent friends, fan friends. So we hear from a lot of people, and I think the consistent thing we hear was we hear some people say when the show moved to Anaheim, or now moving to LA now, is you'll hear some people say, well, that's why I'm not going to go, and you also hear some people say, well, yeah, that's why I am going to go. So it's hard to really know how it all shake out. I think it'll be really interesting when we're all sitting here Sunday night, obviously more interesting for the Comic-Con International folks than even us, and just kind of looking back and reflecting on how the con went. But it'll be interesting. We'll be there. You can definitely follow along with us on social media, because we will bring you every little tidbit about it, really. So, all right, what's up next?
Okay, well, last week, Frankenstein Collectible Show, which is a weekly show, actually twice a week, Wednesday and Saturday, in the City of Industry in California, announced that they're having a 50th anniversary Batman 66 celebration taking place April 30th. Big deal, or what do you think?
Well, I think it is for Southern California fans, because it's interesting. This has kind of flown under the radar a little bit. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it, but when we put it on social media, a lot of people got really excited about it. But obviously, we're at a point right now in history where there's a lot of things celebrating big anniversaries, whether it's Disneyland's 60th or Star Trek, you know, or Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. I mean, all these different properties are celebrating like iconic birthdays. Obviously, Back to the Future, a big year for them for a different reason in 2015. So Batman 66, yeah, I think it is a great thing. Frankenstein, if you've followed along with our coverage in the past, you know they do a lot of these little mini cons, so it remains to be seen what it is. Sometimes they're bigger mini cons, and sometimes they're smaller mini cons. They've got a built-in exhibit hall there, so that's nice. That's going to be there no matter what. But beyond that, is it going to be just Adam West, Burt Ward, and Lee Merriweather signing, and that's about it? Maybe a couple other, you know, new vendors there, or are they going to kind of expand on it? Will they have some bands playing? I mean, it could be more or less depending on the weekend, but regardless, I think bringing those three together to celebrate it, I mean, I hope that there's more celebrations of Batman 66 this year in a variety of different ways in different locations. I mean, hopefully there'll be something in San Diego to kind of honor the show, because it did a lot in pop culture, and I think it's still very you know, it's really had a renaissance or a revival again in the last few years, with Mattel doing their toy line and a lot of, you know, merch kind of finally hitting as they got some likeness rights taken care of over there. But no, I do think it is a big deal. I mean, it's not as big a deal, obviously, as it's showing up at a, you know, major convention like San Diego, saying that they're going to do a little spotlight, or New York Comic-Con or something like that. But I do think it is a big deal, and I do hope that Frankenstein capitalizes on this really cool thing that they're putting together to make it more of a convention and less of a signing. You know, obviously the signing is the major stars there, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And
it's kind of interesting, or the thought of having that same panel or that same signing at someplace like San Diego versus a Frankenstein. I think if it's San Diego, we wouldn't even try for it, because there'd be way too many people trying to get it, and it makes it a much more difficult signing to take part in. Whereas at Frankenstein, because it is a smaller show, usually those types of signings are much more accessible, and they're much more doable. But on the other hand, when they first started doing the Stan Lee signings there periodically, it was pretty messy from what I understand, but then they ended up shifting it and adjusted for years later. So for this one, it'll be interesting to see what adjustments they make on it as far as accommodating them, and what they may sell tickets in advance, which they do for Stan Lee now, or yeah, I mean, obviously as we near April 30th, we'll probably give some tips on that show if depending on what announcements are made, and if it warrants, if there's much announced that requires or would benefit from some analysis. But Yeah, we'll see what other things they announce as it gets closer.
One of the biggest revisions with Stan Lee has been moving a lot of those signings to Sunday, where the show is Wednesdays 3 to 9 and Saturdays 9 to 5 normally, and moving it off of Saturday has helped alleviate some pressure because you don't have people coming for two totally different things. Some people coming just for Frank and Son as a normal Saturday. You've got, Magic gamers there. You've got all sorts of gamers in general there. You've got just the regular people, picking up baseball cards and basketball cards and toys and Funko Pops and everything, and then the kind of mini con with it. So that's been one of the things done there. But yeah, I mean, we talked about a little bit ago on, there's Pasadena Comic Con, LA Sci-Fi Comic Con, and a Stan Lee signing all on a Sunday a few weeks ago, and there's about 3,000 people there at Frank and Son for that. So it can get pretty challenging. I know this is one of those things that I'm just always glad that we've got all their signatures, we've acquired those autographs, but that said, if you are hunting those autographs, this would be a good place to look. Now that said, the Hollywood show has had a decent history of getting them over there as well, so wouldn't be surprised if we see them pop up. In fact, they've got another round of shows coming up here very soon, and so we'll see if there's more to that. So, and obviously we'll cover it here as well, and on the podcast talk about that more in addition. So follow along there. So,
Cool.
Next up.
Okay, so CCI and Lionsgate announced more plans for their Comic-Con HQ streaming channel. The beta launches May 7th, which is Free Comic Book Day on desktop browsers, iOS and Android, and then shortly thereafter, it'll launch on Xbox One, Roku, and Apple TV. And then the alpha is scheduled to launch at WonderCon. So will you be subscribing, or?
Well, this is really interesting because obviously the first thing people leapt to was the idea of streaming Hall H panels or Ballroom 20 panels live across the world, and what would that do to those infamous lines at Hall H and San Diego Comic-Con in general. They've been very clear that they want to keep that spirit of the excitement of making it into the room alive, and that they will not be streaming any of those panels live. They've also made it really clear that they want to focus on scripted programming and just new programming every week. So it's not just an archive, which an archive itself is just a really cool idea, since obviously San Diego has so many amazing panels, and there's no way to see them all, or no way to even see 10% of them. So it is neat to have this one depository where you can go and check out all sorts of panels. Not that they'll have every panel room, but a lot of these panel rooms. But we'll see what it all ends up being, because they really do want to focus on the idea of extending the Comic-Con International brand as an entertainment venue. And so that's interesting. I mean, they've got a couple of Adam Sessler and Kevin Pereira from G4 and a number of other online things are executive producing a couple of the shows over there. So they plan to put new content up each week. So it's not just going to be an archive. So that focused on original content, I think, is going to be, key ingredient there. I think it's a key ingredient for anything that's on YouTube or on any streaming channel these days. Netflix has really taken off, not because of the archives of all these old great movies or TV shows. It's really taking off because of the new stuff, the Marvel stuff, Orange is the New Black, House of Cards, and all of those. So I think really, as you see, Comic-Con already is the king of Comic-Cons, and now they have this way to really tap into something. They have a great product with their archives, but at the same time they can create something new using that brand and kind of extending in that way. So I am excited to see where it goes. I'm not sure that I'll personally be subscribing to it or paying for it. We'll see what the services are and how we want to access it and how important it is to us. But I do think it's interesting because everything is about becoming more focused with a finer point on the things that people are interested in. And if you're into Comic-Con, what better place to get your information than directly from their channel?
Yeah, valid point. Now, I did sign up, go through the invitation thing so that I get the beta when it gets released and stuff. So I don't know, I'll give it a try. I'm not sold on it yet, but I think, well, I definitely don't know, because I don't think they entirely know exactly what they're going to be doing with it over time. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be exciting times there. I think it's exciting times just in general for all of us that are interested in more nuanced things, like toys. or comics or cons or any of those things. And so definitely worth following along with. And obviously ourselves being content creators, having our own talk show on YouTube, obviously we're interested in this whole movement. And so I think what Comic-Con HQ will do is going to be really interesting to watch for all of us, and we will watch. So, all right, so that wraps up our Coming to a Con Near You segment. Now we're going to move over to Under the Con. This is our segment where we go in depth with one specific con. This time we are in San Jose for Silicon Valley Comic-Con, and so that's the con that we are going to bring you. And so this is a brand new convention. The put on, or really the face behind it, literally the face behind it right there on the programs, all the signage, is Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak. And so Woz, as he's called here, I mean, you drive into the convention center on Woz Drive. There's a real very specific focus there. The convention itself is meant to really be a celebration of pop culture, but at the same time technology. There's a lot of great things going on with virtual reality. We'll take you to the floor and show you some video of that, as well as the panels and stuff. Also of note, they are using, and it would seem almost surprising if they didn't, but the RFID wristband. So we are going to be seeing this at WonderCon and San Diego Comic-Con this year. So this is kind of a preview for us. It's the first show we've attended to actually of all these cons that's using that technology, and so it's been used for a while at some of the Reed Pop shows in different ways, and New York Comic Con, definitely fans are used to that, but it's a different thing here, and so we'll kind of hit on a few of those as well. So location, San Jose Convention Center, and they really stressed the point that they wanted to give this gift to San Jose, and so it's a very specific location, although they did talk about a Tokyo Comic-Con that Wozniak's also putting together. So it's not that this brand that they're developing here in Silicon is meant to be just here, but this is definitely kind of where the heart and soul of the show begins. It is a 3-day convention. It began Friday night and was 5 to 9, so they didn't call it explicitly a preview night, but kind of has that preview night feel, 4 hours there. And then the show running exhibit hall floor 10 to 6 the next couple of days, with obviously some after hours programming there. The price is interesting in terms of, you know, what we're used to convention price. It's on the pricier side. It's $99 for 3 days, $50 for Saturday, just to give one specific there for adults. Kids 5 and under are free, and obviously reduced prices for Sunday and things like that. But it's pretty pricey. Now, Silicon Valley dollars pricey, I'm not sure. We saw huge lines here wrapped around the convention center, quite literally in the hotel, so it seemed to not be too expensive for anyone there. But, you know, it's a pricey show there, and so as we talk about value and stuff, it's something to be considered in terms of what you're getting. Now, what you are getting is a lot on the floor. Rancho Obi-Wan is here with the largest Star Wars collection anywhere, with just a small sample of it, but still, Stan Lee has the museum there. There's a cartoon museum. NASA has some stuff there. A bunch of virtual reality interactive activities, a gaming center with all sorts of retro gaming opportunities, and a floor packed with comics and toys and celebrity signings and all sorts of things. So why don't we take you right now down to the floor of Silicon Valley Comic Con so you can take a look at some of this.
There's definitely a lot to take pictures of. A lot of very rare, one-of-a-kind Star Wars merchandise.
There's a lot of
World, and they come from Japan.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, this poster in the corner right here, the original name for Return of the Jedi was Revenge of the Jedi.
Yeah, that's right.
And he owns one of the original posters made before the name was changed. So, a lot of cool stuff in here. Check it out, have fun. Business cards and stuff. They're actually selling tickets, raffle tickets, so you can win like a happy hour and hang out with them at the range. So, yeah. Come on in and check it out. I hope you guys brought cameras, you take pictures and stuff. There's a lot of very rare, one-of-a-kind Star Wars merchandise you've never seen yet.
Look at that one.
out and stuff like that. They made me a Bampa and a Tauntaun rocking horse. Bampa one I can ride. Bampa one.
Oh shit, this is fucking something.
Yeah, he got it from the. He tried to track down the artist who actually did it. It's super new that you want for now. It's just, but it's a great piece.
A little bit of a sponsor of Rachel Obi-Wan is writing this next for us this weekend.
Yeah. She told Emily, but I didn't bother asking because I don't really want to know.
I think it's
Connor, look it.
Maybe.
it's like when I saw you guys at the mall.
Oh, yeah.
Who is this? Yeah? She's taking a picture. Hold on, baby. That is so... Connor, honey, after the picture, I just want to touch this. Did I take a picture of this one? You want the original? Okay.
But you know, living right.
If I had to choose one for you, I'd say Aaron Fairley.
Yeah, last year, man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was from last year. I told her, I was like, Aaron, I'm not even.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I told her I'll take the phone. She was wild. Because I already
Hey,
that's
that's
a get one shot.
reasonable
Get
answer.
one shot only. She goes, fair enough. I didn't know it was sooner. That's pretty awesome. Like Natalie? Oh my. Resident
Yo, that's pretty cool. Two different sides of
I like this one.
I think Spider-Man's design has always been like super like.
Spider-Man's probably one of my favorite.
I think design-wise, he's also one. Well thought out.
I don't know what the heck that is now.
That's a ghost posting. Right. Next to. Want to get it? Yes. Yeah, I only get it.
We're walking right up in the truck.
Yeah. I was at a, I don't know, if I could find it now, that'd be cool. I had a Superman figure that came with it.
No, we started it here. Yeah.
There's an auction going on, and a lot of the stuff is here, you see.
Yeah, if you need me to, I can just go on.
Yeah, so I have it in right now. One is,
It's time to get it going.
He's 9 years old, you're not allowed to be tired. Hey, let's get some army comic books, yeah?
We have an item of yours to last to the band.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, yeah. That's drainage people. Reading you at the park.
now your camera up. Should I? Awesome. Now nobody's lost. Look how it's like this big camera thing. All right. Remember one more up. I'm wondering. You back up there.
I don't have it wide enough.
Are you trying to hurt cats?
Actually, if I could get the other lens, I'd probably be okay. Making me miss shots.
Oh, wait, keep an eye on her stuff. Keep going. Front here. There we go. All right, shooters, how are we looking? I'll ask him. How are you doing?
I think I'm
You
doing
got the whole width?
I got the whole width, yep.
Everybody happy? All right.
Yeah, you're shooting full frame.
All right, everyone looking right here. If you can't see his lens, he can't see you. Scoot left, scoot right, whatever you need to do. Actually, all right, everyone, focus right here in center. 3, 2, 1, shoot.
Yeah? Look at blow. Yeah, I know.
I was gonna leave a mess.
So hopefully you enjoyed that look. I mean, whenever we hit the floor of these conventions to bring it to you in our Under the Con here, it's just kind of a slice of it, of what it is. Most of that video was filmed Saturday afternoon, but what you got the idea, and this was pretty consistent even from Friday night, preview night, the place was packed. I mean, really, really packed. It felt like pretty much all of the resources were being overwhelmed, which is both a good and a bad thing. I mean, I think the crowds exceeded everyone's expectations, and consequently, it was tough getting up and down rows, but also it seemed like vendors were doing really well. And I know we saw a lot of people having a really good time despite those crowds on the floor. But I mean, I had a good time on the floor. It wasn't the deepest depth of things like vintage toys. It was a little bit weaker scene there than what we've seen at some of the other Northern California conventions in the past. But there's fun stuff there. Some comics, a lot of independent creators there as well. And then a very eclectic group when it came to kind of the technology side of things, though. But what were some of your observations of the floor?
It was crowded. This morning when I first walked onto the floor, which was it started at 10, so we went straight in. Even as early as 10:30, that floor was it was definitely more crowded than I was expecting it to be, and I was surprised by that. And then it just got more packed as the day went on. So I actually didn't mind that we had already kind of planned to spend some time in the panel rooms because they were great panels, and I did not mind being off the floor because it was so crowded. And when I did make it back onto the floor, I think early afternoon or so, after whatever panels, it was muggy and yeah, I don't know if the air conditioning wasn't on or wasn't on high enough, and because of my height and stuff, it's kind of always difficult for me to maneuver in conventions when it's that crowded because I can't see what's ahead and what's going on. So sometimes I get a little overwhelmed by those crowds, as many as we do. And I wasn't expecting that to be the case for Silicon Valley Comic-Con. That being said, though, once in my head I kind of turned that mental switch and accepted that, okay, this is what this is going to be today, then it was fine. But because it was so crowded, it's tough to even see all that the vendors have to offer. So going through multiple times will kind of be necessary for the show. But yeah, it's great that they've done so well and pulled so many people, and obviously that's a result of them filling this gap that people, I guess, have felt since like WonderCon left, and there hasn't been a huge or a big show like this one with as much financial backing as they've had, and been the ability to pull in as many big actors and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, Big Wow did a great job of stepping in and giving a really solid big Comic-Con. And there's a lot of other shows in, within an hour's drive or whatever that have been great shows as well. But in terms of, as you said, that kind of Hollywood side of things, there hasn't been anything to that level. I mean, Wizard, we always kind of cut Wizard out of the picture because that's just a whole different thing. I mean, in a lot of ways, Wizard is very much just an autograph show. Not to say that there aren't comics and artists. There are those other things. But in the end, it's a different type of show. It's a different animal as it kind of floats around the country and stuff. But in terms of like a regional show, a show that kind of takes ownership of an area and is kind of its own thing, WonderCon was very special for the people of the area, and then it left, and now it's been gone for a few years, and so Silicon is kind of stepping in that way. But as you said, it was hard to get to booths even because you wanted to get things. I mean, a lot of times after a show, we're looking at, we got these comics, and we're trying to, as we're looking at what we are going to talk about in the Under the Con segment, it's like, well, we don't want to have all this stuff, so let's leave. It's like, this represents everything. Is basically made one purchase of 2 Marvel Legends figures, which I was really excited to get the Hydra agent there, because many of the vendors were selling for $40 on their own, or eBay, it's going for about 40 or so, but we picked him up, and the Captain America werewolf style there for a combined $35 for the 2 of them, so that was great. And then we picked up 2 of the smaller, formerly Marvel Universe, now Marvel Legends, smaller scale figures for about $24 there. But we had a tough time even getting close to a lot of the booths, and not that you couldn't force your way in there. T-Turtle was just like 2 or 3 people deep every time we passed by, and it wouldn't say that we couldn't force our way in there, but I don't think for us there's enough of a priority there. So we'll see them at the next con. We don't need to force our money into their hands there. And so every vendor that we kind of went by, you had to take time and think do I really need to see them? Is it really that big of a deal? Do they have anything that unique that I can't catch at the next convention? So that said, though, obviously that's a great thing for the vendors. And I've seen a lot of vendors tweeting, vendors we've talked to have said they've had a really good show, if not their best show. And so there's a lot to be said for that. The other thing in terms of kind of the exciting thing about the show is when you look at the infrastructure that they've kind of built in terms of, they have a lot of volunteers, they have a huge registration desk, they have great big signage, they invested in bringing in the RFID technology, carpeting throughout the convention, teaming up with Stan Lee and Steve Sansweet over at Rancho Obi-Wan. I mean, a lot of partnerships there and a lot of money put in. There's no doubt that there's a big bankroll behind this convention, and it's not surprising. So what that kind of tells you is that there's some faith there that this isn't going to be a one and done, that this is something that they're trying to nurture and cultivate. And bringing Michael J. Fox in is a huge thing. I mean, he doesn't make convention appearances. So when you add all these things up and then you say, okay, the people behind it, they have capital, they're extremely intelligent and innovative. I don't really have any fears with the show. Now, that said, I do have fears about the San Jose Convention Center, because I think when you talk about, because it was just hot, I would go beyond saying muggy, it was just hot in parts of the floor, and then other areas would be cold because the air conditioning was hitting right there. I just think the physical infrastructure of the San Jose Convention Center is really going to struggle, that they're going to have to really integrate the Marriott and the Hilton and the hotels, and they're going to have to really rethink. But again, I have no doubt that they have the resources and the people to make some amazing decisions and just build. So I'm really excited we made our way up here to see it, because I do think this is the first year of something big and fun and sustainable, and something that will be coming back to many years from now. It's very different than Stanley's Kamikaze Expo, but it does have some touch there. But one thing that reminds me from whatever it was 5-6 years ago when we went to to the first one of those is I remember being at that convention. They had nowhere near the infrastructure put together or the resources in terms of finances at the time, but you just felt like this is going to be around for a while. And now when we go there and they've got the big Hot Topic main stage and they're filling up the entire LA Convention Center, it's like, yep, this is we saw this writing on the wall, this was coming. And I think the same thing here is I think Silicon Valley Comic Con is not going anywhere for a very, very long time, and I think it'll only get better and more fun each year.
Yeah, it's got to be tough when you're throwing a convention for the first time and you really don't know who's going to show up and how many people will show up. And the impression I got was that a lot of the people who were waiting in registration today, which, that line, I've never seen a registration line like that was today.
Anime Expo.
Well,
Anime Expo, yeah, and you've not been to Anime, but for people watching that have seen, you can Google Anime Expo line and see it's prolific and it goes blocks and blocks and blocks down the street.
Yeah, Kamikaze had that one year.
Yeah. But yeah, we're talking, this is wrapping like an entire convention center, hotels.
Through the convention center, and then when we left the convention center to try to find food for lunch because all the food on site was overwhelmed, it wrapped around the outside hotel and down. It was crazy.
To get a drink, we talk about this more on the podcast, and check that out on obviously iTunes and Stitcher, but to get a Diet Coke, to get a sandwich, to get a bag of chips, we're talking about probably about a half-hour wait at minimum. Huge lines, not enough food, but again, all very much solvable problems. So
yeah, totally, and it was fun in the panels we went to.
Well, let's turn to that then next with the panels then, is talking about the panels, because the panels are a big draw. What got us interested in Silicon Valley Comic Con in the first place, is, to be 100% honest, is them emailing us and saying, hey, we'd like to work with you, we'd like you to come to the show. That's cool. It could have been a mass email to literally everyone that's ever bought a comic book in America, and it wouldn't matter, but the fact that they personalized an email and said, hey, Sean, we'd like you to come up and cover the show, it got it on our radar. We kept an eye on it, and then as the programming developed, as the guest list developed, you had to take notice. Bringing together Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, and Michael J. Fox on one stage to talk Back to the Future is incredible. It's something that we've not seen anywhere, and no one really has in recent times, or in any real way. Nathan Fillion being there, Jeremy Renner being there, and the list goes on and on and on. And so, why don't we actually bring you into the panel rooms to show you some snippets of some of the panels we checked out, because there was some really unique stuff. We'll have more video from all of these if you check out on our YouTube channel. We've got tons of snippet videos of pretty much all of these panels, as well as longer length ones that will be going up either before or after this episode airs. But check out some quick little looks into the room to get an idea of what these panel rooms at Silicon Valley Comic Con look like.
These are not the clones I'm looking for. Well, welcome. I'm so glad you're a part of this. I hope you enjoy the event. I've always believed in a lot of fun, entertainment, major part of life. To us, we have worked hard to create this event and all the facilities in it. And it's just like a new product. It's a startup company. Is it going to go or not? And that's going to be determined by how well you enjoy the event. I'm certainly going to enjoy it. Now, this event is based on visual imagery, superheroes, unbelievable powers, things that don't exist for humans. We've been working all our life with our computer products to give humans more power than they ever had in the world, more control of things. And so that's what we're all about. And it just fits that it belongs right here in San Jose. I am going to tell you now one of the key reasons that we started Apple Computer. Steve Jobs and I discussed it, that we wanted our blind and deaf friends to be equal to others. We cared so much. And we've been successful. Walk down any sidewalk and you'll see all the people just staring at their hands, oblivious to everything around them. We've made equality. We're excited to be presenting this show right here in San Jose, sort of known for a place we grew up, Silicon Valley. I was born in San Jose, but we have a sister show that's going to be in Tokyo, and it takes a lot of...
Ciao now.
So I wanted to ask you a question about the Avengers.
Yeah?
So in the first Avengers, Hawkeye was in love with Black Widow, but then in Avengers Age of Ultron, Hawkeye was married and had kids.
Yes. Where are you going with this, buddy?
It was very confusing to young audience.
It was very confusing to me, too. Yeah, I didn't write it. Yeah, but yeah, you blame Joss, that's right. Yeah, I didn't write it, you know, that's all I can do. Yeah, it can be confusing, right? I'm still confused.
That's all I wanted to ask.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, we got somebody else here. Should we, can you bring a friend? Yeah, you brought it. Oh! So pretty! We couldn't get Ryan's whole body, but...
Hey, check this out, because you wouldn't... This is really cool about this mask. You can just pop the eyes out. Like that. They're magnetic, so it was really cool on set, because they just kind of pop in. And then Ryan could, like, let a little air in, you know? He could pop the eyes out every time in between takes.
Good for the stunt team,
It's really
too.
cool,
Right?
yeah.
Some guys can see better when they're
Totally.
stuff. That's awesome.
And it's never been washed.
Smells a little funny.
This whole movie was designed to make Ryan Reynolds uncomfortable. Everything he had to do was uncomfortable.
Awesome. So, can you give us a little bit of an intro on kind of Blur Studios, right? A lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with Blur, even though it's been around for such a long time and doing stuff that probably everyone here has seen. They just don't know that name.
If you play games, you've probably seen our work. But,
all right, so can you tell us a little bit about what it was like bringing this person to life? Someone who's an ancient monster, but also very human.
Well, it took me a long time to realize that he's an ancient monster. I just tried to imagine a creature, which is what he really is, surviving perhaps centuries or thousands of years in kind of one form or another, one way or another, and whose survival is dependent on his, when a part of his body was decaying and beginning to deteriorate, like his lungs or his heart or leg, he would go out and find somebody and take that part that he's changing from him and replace it from the person he's just killed. And he's motivated tremendously motivated by the fact that in his human form, he met a woman and he fell in love with her. And it was the first time in maybe thousands of years that he ever experienced falling in love. And it's made him want to live longer in order to be with this person he's fallen in love with. So he's kind of destroying lives in order to save his own, so he can continue in this relationship with this woman who he absolutely adores. So putting all that and some other parts of it into my head and trying to feel what he feels, added to his ancestry, his, and the love for this woman and the way he justifies going on. And I just, had to, because it's not something we experience ourselves, it's kind of out there. So I had to put all that together and come up with the truth of the character. And in the kind of movie this is, being able to let the character develop without totally giving away that he was the killer, you know. So yeah, I don't know.
So hopefully you like that. Again, just a quick look at it. I'll say this, being a person who I always consider myself not a panel person, you know, and we have friends and people we know that just never set foot in a panel room, and we have others that barely set foot on an exhibit hall floor. I'm definitely more in the not going into the panel room than the other. But that said, we check out some panels. I mean, we spent a huge day in Hall H last year on Saturday. But that said, I really have enjoyed the panels. I mean, seeing Tim Miller talk Deadpool, I mean, that's so apt and so, you know, right now. Steve Wozniak, obviously, and being let in by the 501st was a really cool moment. The reveal of the wax figure. Jeremy Renner was super engaging, a really fun hour of entertainment. And there was a lot of panels in addition to that, but also a lot of panels we didn't get to go to that I know were great. I know Alan Tudyk and Nathan Fillion talking Con Man. I know Nathan Fillion on his own. I know Nichelle Nichols, the Back to the Future panel. I mean, there was great panels pretty much from morning to night, and that's not the type of programming you expect from a first-year con.
No, definitely. And that being said, I mean, going back to the infrastructure concerns, those rooms were packed, and I think we only went to one panel where the room wasn't standing room only, and that was I'm Not a Serial Killer, that an independent film that debuted at South by Southwest. And that kind of makes sense that it wouldn't be such a magnet necessarily because it hasn't come out yet or anything like that publicly or widely. But the big panel room that they had for Jeremy Renner was standing room only. And then the Deadpool panel, there were a lot of people who had been waiting for quite a while who didn't get in. And if you're on the outside in that line waiting to get in, you can't tell what size the panel room is.
Right.
And the fact that there wasn't any communication as to what the rooms actually held, and the volunteers weren't telling people, weren't capping the line, which of course the cons don't usually do, but I would have been very frustrated if I had waited in line for hours and then didn't make it into the panel room and no one gave me the indication that that was even a possibility.
Right.
Would have been a very difficult thing to
Yeah, and there was an odd thing. The Back to the Future panel required a $10 separate admission ticket, which maybe it was going to charity, maybe it was a specification of Michael J. Fox. I mean, he does a lot of charity work. It's all, and I think people would be fine with whatever it was, but it wasn't really communicated. You had to go onto the website, and there was just a, click on panels, and there was like one panel that had a fee, and there was people, and we heard from some of them that had waited in line for quite a while and then got to the front of the line to get into the room and were told, oh, you needed a ticket. And it was like, oh, so there was definitely some breakdowns in communication there. We definitely saw a lot of staff very stressed, which is not uncommon at conventions of this size and scope, where people get, it gets a little crazy, and people weren't ready for the stress that comes with it. But again, I think these are all things that will get tweaked, and the show will get better and healthier. But in the end, bringing together these experiences and letting the people of San Jose and the local area enjoy big-time Hollywood panels is a really cool thing. I go back to, again, Tim Miller with Blur Studio there. I mean, these are the people that just made the most successful, R-rated comic book movie in history that's kind of changing the industry. Now everybody's talking about their R-rated comic book movies, and they're just up there on stage like 20 feet from us, being very accessible. They have the Deadpool mask out there that they used, and we're showing it. I took a picture of it was like 2 feet from my face, and it's like, this is a really cool kind of Hollywood experience. It's a very cool San Diego Comic-Con type experience, and to have that kind of customized and brought here, I think, is a real gift to the local community, and I think that's why.
It was a small room.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, they're going to have to access, like some of the other conferences or conventions in the areas do, is they're going to have to access the Hilton and the Marriott. They're going to have to expand the floors. They're going to have to tweak the Rancho Obi-Wan Stan Lee Museum cartoon display there and give them less room and kind of reformat it. And there's just going to be a lot of structural changes, I think. And now, to be honest, I'm just really excited about year 2. Like, I wish we could hit the fast forward button and come right back, because I do want to come back and I do want to check it out. because I have a lot of faith in them, and I think that they've done a lot of things to, you know, gain equity in my book of why I would want to put it. You know, for us that are probably going to cover about 60 conventions this year, to add a convention that's going to be a 7-hour drive from our house is not a small or a little, you know, light thing.
Obviously, if you follow along, you know that we did not decide we were for sure doing this one until very recently.
Yeah, just in the last couple weeks,
probably.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we kind of been going back and forth, but because there was so much being communicated about what was going to be here, and looking around, and we have several friends that are from San Diego and Orange County and stuff who were planning on coming up here, and seeing that they were all so excited about it, I think got me that much more excited about it too and stuff. So we made it out here, and like I said, I'm glad we did, and it is exciting to see what they're going to do, because you know that they're going to make improvements, and all of these things that we've mentioned aren't things that aren't fixable by any means.
Right.
But yeah, the communication was so out there that it did draw people, and I mean, obviously we'll drive to Phoenix and we'll drive to Vegas and stuff to cover cons, but lots of times we'll go to those conventions, and our local friends, our SoCal friends, very few of them will make those drives, but we know several people who came up here for this one. So
yeah, this felt like WonderCon in terms of like every aisle we walked down, there's somebody we know that had made the drive or trip, whether they're vendors or, you know, just attendees.
Right. So exciting stuff.
Well, so let's see, who should attend the show then for the next part of this Under the Con is really, I mean, I think it's very wide ranging. I mean, it's definitely kid friendly, it's cosplay friendly, but I would say it's definitely most targeted at, as I call them, Hollywood hunters, people hunting kind of the Hollywood experience. Again, there's comics, there's a very independent sense to parts of the show as well. But in the end, I think the show really is built at its foundation about people that are interested in seeing Nathan Fillion or Back to the Future, these things. But in addition to that, there's also kind of that innovative tech side too, is the gamers, the people that are really looking for the next big thing as well. So I don't necessarily even have a category to define them in terms of what we, you know, they're not the bin divers, obviously, that are just there to dive in the comic bins. But definitely it's got a strong Hollywood sense with a lot of other components to it as well. And I think, again, all of those will just build into their sections of the show as the show grows. Will we be back, or when will we be back? Well, on the back of the program it says stay tuned for next year, Silicon Valley Comic Con, March 2017. So we don't know the date. I would imagine it would not be the same weekend that C2E2 is, because that's definitely a big conflict this year. Although C2E2 is Chicago, you'd say, well, but the thing is, this is not meant to be a regional show. This is a show that immediately is coming up to the lines of a Phoenix Comic Con, a C2E2, a Emerald City Comic Con, where they're immediately jumping on the scene, and they're going to be expecting people to get on airplanes and fly out, because it's that level of a show. So definitely excited for it to be in March. I think that's a good time of year. Hopefully it'll be a few weeks before WonderCon to give us more distance, because this time WonderCon is right around the corner for us to kind of rebound from. And where you can find them, well, Silicon Valley Comic Con, obviously an easy place to find them. We've got lots of stuff that's going to be going up on our website as well, but they're easy to find. They're all very social media friendly, lots of tweeting and use of Instagram and all of that stuff. And so, yeah, fun time, and we look forward to being back.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go ahead and move to then our con tip segment.
Yep. So it is our con tip segment, where we bring you tips to help improve your con experiences. Sometimes they're going to be more generic tips, and other times they're going to be more specific to specific shows. And today, though, we are talking about social media accounts to follow.
Yeah, so we thought about this in leading up, because it's a very, very big question for San Diego Comic-Con. I mean, I've written articles for the SDCC unofficial blog before, just who to follow. It's a huge topic there. That was really, I think, first how, you know, before you ever did anything with our stuff, when I was just the Confluence on my own, is the way I built a following was getting featured on a lot of who to follow for San Diego Comic-Con type lists. And so it is important there. That being said, I think a lot of times it's underestimated for these other mid to large range shows that aren't San Diego Comic-Con, like a WonderCon, like a Silicon Valley Comic-Con. And so I want to talk a little bit about that and kind of getting ready for that. So first off, let's just kind of use WonderCon then as our sample to look at, because it's very applicable for a lot of people that watch our stuff, and also it's just right around the corner here. So first off, we look at really kind of two major factions to kind of follow. One are the news sites, the people that are going to be in the trenches or covering the things leading up. So as we look at WonderCon, the examples there then real easily is the San Diego Comic-Con unofficial blog, although it's not the same type of coverage as something like San Diego Comic-Con. WonderCon being the sister show, there's a lot there. If you look right now on the internet, you will not find more information about WonderCon and on any other site anywhere, including Comic-Con International. I mean, there's so many articles. The blog is not just an aggregator of news, although they do gather up all this news, but they dig. They use social media to poke and prod and find things and trace down information. And so it's a really good source. So for news sites, them for sure. I like to think of us being a big part of that because we are at the center of everything on the floor. We do not do a lot of digging I mean, we do this type of stuff, but we're not poking and prodding and looking for information beforehand. We go to sites like SDCC blog to find our information a lot of times. But once we're in that show mode, once we park the car and get on the floor there, we're in all the nooks and crannies, and we're constantly tweeting out tips and finding freebies and swag and cosplay opportunities, and we're putting it out there. And then lastly, on that news site is Evico, at Evico, E-V-I-C-O. Our friend Evic, that also, man, it goes way back in the day. He's been to 20-some years of San Diego Comic-Con, but no one knows how to run the floor to find freebies, exclusives, or autograph signings. I mean, he's the best. He is the best out there. And he doesn't post anywhere near as much on social media as he used to. I mean, Twitter, he used to be very active. He's a lot less. He's still good about answering questions, though, especially during convention times. So follow along with him because he will find things, because he's great at kind of both sides. He digs up a lot of info ahead of time, and then once the show comes on, he is there. And so, I mean, I've gotten so many little direct messages or texts from him just at Silicon Valley, because he's up here with us this weekend, and he's fine. Oh, the Loot Crate panel, they're going to give away these Deadpool figures, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. And that wasn't announced anywhere that I know of. I mean, but whatever his source is, maybe it was something he just caught on Twitter side. I'm not sure, but he knew that before we saw it anywhere else. Which leads us to the other side then, is the entities, and following at a convention like this, like a Loot Crate, or if we're talking about WonderCon, DC is going to be one. Show accounts for whether it's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Legends of Tomorrow, those types of accounts, they're nowhere near as reliable or timely in a lot of cases, because a lot of times they'll post things after it happened. It's like, oh, look at all these happy fans after the signing is over. But you never know. They do post things sometimes, and you do get little pieces of information. And more importantly about following them is asking them in questions and engaging them. Is tweet directly at them. The actors of the shows a lot of times will reveal info. If you're interested in that, going back to that Teen Titans Go panel, be following all the voice actors, be following the behind the scenes people, and tweet them questions, because sometimes the bigger accounts will not answer it, but that voice actor that has 3,000 followers will definitely answer, or they'll give you those insights, and so that can be very helpful there. Then lastly, on those social media accounts, make sure to create lists so you have it all very organized and you're only looking at the info you need. If you're at a New York Comic-Con and we're not there, there's no reason you want to be seeing our tweets about what's going on at Disneyland. You want to be focused in on the zone of what's going on there. And then on that creating lists, again, just asking those questions is engaging people and looking for that. But I find Twitter... So yeah, I mean, I don't know how I could really enjoy convention without having access. Now that said, as our account has grown and we have so many people tweeting at us, a lot of times I don't have time to catch up with questions and I miss them. And I always tell people, if I miss your question, send it to us a second time. It's not that I'm trying to. I know WonderCon last year, we were blitzed. Every time I looked at my notifications, it was at the 20+ symbol where it was just, overflowing there. So, as people get busy, there's less info. Sometimes it's able to be gotten out there. But that said, we'll try and put stuff out there, all those sites that I've talked about, and again, asking those questions to maybe find more info as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously we do our best to get the stuff out there as quickly as possible, and following, you're probably already following those actors and those voice actors and those entities that you're most interested in, but if for whatever reason you're not, or you don't like what they tweet out there, in those times when you're looking for that information, yeah, be sure to give them a follow and keep track of, set the alerts, especially on the day of. It's nice to have those alerts because sometimes no one knows ahead of time that all of a sudden the DC booth is going to be giving away, I don't know, casino chips or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can, if you get those alerts specific to those entities, sometimes you get that information quicker than other people, and definitely quicker than us even to be able to get it retweeted and stuff. So
We get a lot of people that tell us that they set alerts for us during things like WonderCon San Diego, and I'm always like, because we put a lot of information out there, and that feels like that would be overwhelming, of like the cup, you know, being overflowing with water there. But that said, you know, there is a lot of things that we'll find, and we put them up there. And yeah, if you had it, I mean, I remember last year at San Diego about the, they made some changes with how they were giving away the free Ant-Man shirts at the Hasbro booth. And, you know, I put it out there right away, and there's 3 or 4 people that were like, oh man, I'm so glad I have you set on alert, because they got right over there and they got their cool, you know, Ant-Man shirts. I got 2 Ant-Man shirts, one for you and one for me. And
I
so,
rated in that
oh, you got them too. The point being is, as these things pop up, a lot of times there's seconds, there's not even minutes to get to some of these things if you really want that opportunity for this signing. You know, another one, I signed, LL Cool J was signing at the CBS booth the one year, and it was like he was just there and he had no line. Nobody knew about it, and then it's like put it up there and immediately a bunch of people are over there, and then, you know, the line gets capped and it goes away. But these opportunities, if you keep your eyes open, you'll see them, and social media can help a lot. Have that battery charged on your phone and keep Twitter open. You know, Facebook, Instagram have varying degrees of resources once I think you're in the eye of the hurricane at the convention floor. But Twitter, definitely, that's that real-time update. And if you've not used Twitter very much, because we know some people are just like, I'm into Facebook, that's my thing, or Instagram, or Tumblr, whatever. I always suggest you need a Twitter account, just like you need online banking or anything else in this world now. Is just, even if you don't ever tweet anything, just something to follow along. And what we always suggest with the convention too is everybody in your party, if they're, you know, you're married or you have friends or whatever, if there's 5 of you, every person should have their own Twitter account. It's just 5 eyes watching. And even if everybody in the group is only following 5 accounts or 2 accounts or 3 accounts, if everybody's following along, it makes it a lot easier to share that information and share
that
what
is your
I see.
chances. I mean, obviously with data connections, internet connections, what they are and kind of spotty. I mean, there's times that you'll get something before I do, or I get something before you do, and then it's like, oh wow, okay, that's going on, or whatever. And so, yeah, the more eyes you have, and going with groups of people, not even just for the social media aspect, but for the lineups and for the, well, like Comic-Con trying to do the Hasbro line on preview night. It's like you have to have multiple people, because sometimes that line moves and everyone's waiting in one area, and then all of a sudden they've moved the line to the wall instead, or they've moved it, you know, wherever. And having multiple people around to be able to get to all these different places is definitely helpful. But
yeah, and we'll talk more about that in terms of making friends and having resources as we get closer to Comic-Con as well. So you can expect lots of prep for that as we lead to that too. But hopefully that helps you a little bit preparing, whether it be for WonderCon or whatever your next bigger convention is. So with that, I think we're going to wrap up this big show. Silicon Valley Comic-Con was a big show, and so it required us to have a big show. So hopefully you've enjoyed that, taking a look. If you made it out, hopefully you had fun. If not, definitely put it on your calendar for next year if you can, and check it out. So why don't you go ahead and tell people where to find you?
well, we both monitor the Parks and Cons social media stuff everywhere, YouTube and all of the usual places, but you can reach me directly through Twitter at Connoisseur, which is CON_NOISSEUR, or you can email me directly at carmel@parksandcons.com.
And you can find me on Twitter, again, manning the Parks and Cons account quite a bit, but also my own personal account at _con_fluence, the Confluence. And again, Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, you can find us in all those places as well. If you are interested in theme parks, please check out our other show here on the YouTube channel. The goal is every Thursday we're putting up a new show, and it alternates. So one week it is Con Talk, the other week it's SoCal Park Talk. So the parks and the cons, both sides covered, talking news, and also looking very in in depth at one topic each week. Also, if you are interested in this sort of talk, definitely check out our podcast over on iTunes and Stitcher, or our website if that's your preferred way to consume podcasts. We go into different, or more depth, I would say, in a lot of topics, and just different. The format of the show is different. It's definitely not this show just stripped of video and put over there. So please help us out by subscribing to the show here on YouTube and sharing it with friends. We're really looking to bolster our subscription numbers, and that has been going up since we started launching these talk shows, so we appreciate that. That was one of the goals of why we wanted to do this, so help us grow that audience, and it is very much appreciated. As I said, you can find us on all the social media platforms that we use at Parks and Cons, so whether it be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Periscope, all of them Parks and Cons. Again, we thank you for joining us, and until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.